Après, merci beaucoup en tout cas. Merci.
really? Is it a nice question? If the Danes said they're going to put boots in the ground. Yeah, yeah. And they were in hell as well. Sorry, Jordan, where do you... Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah, yeah. I suspect he comes out with that. Because he's quite lucky. No, I mean, stop. No, I didn't. Yeah.
Hopefully it will be productive.
Any concrete outcomes to expect?
After the meeting.
Un nuage, pas de nuage. Là, il y a un nuage. Hein. Il y a un nuage pour l'instant.
franchement, pas de temps que tu m'emploies abandonné, ben, je regarde 2 fois.
Good afternoon, everyone. distinguished media. This is an important meeting today on a coalition of the willing. I believe that we have a clear goal, the goal supporting Ukraine unwaveringly, supporting Ukraine through strengths, so the peace through strengths, so it must be just and sustainable, and that's why, of course, we appreciate also the leadership of UK and France, gathering us, assembling us, here the ministers who will be providing also guidelines to our military. Of course, the reassurance force, which is on agenda. It is an important mechanism how we can support Ukraine as well. Of course, some details still must be carved out. Some parameters of the ceasefire or peace agreement also, of course, must be established. Latvia has played an important role. We believe that we must be part of the coalition of the willing, and I would even add coalition of the able. So we've been able supporting Ukraine with 0.25% from our GDP, which goes militarily to Ukraine every year, this year and next year, and last year we've been top 3 in terms of military support. We've been providing equipment. We are leading or co-leading together with UK the drone coalition. We believe all technologies start changing the battlefield, and of course we are also one of the leading nations in training Ukraine already for years, Ukrainian soldiers, and will be continuously doing so also in different formats. Well, the reassurance force, of course, still must be discussed in details. There are several dimensions to it, but I would not go too much public before we also make some decisions. But at the same time, as I mentioned previously, there are several processes at the same time, in a sense. Namely, is that, of course, we have to deal with Russia. We have to deal with strong sanctions. We have to deal with ensuring sustainable and just peace, supporting Ukraine. And then at the same time, of course, we are speaking specifically about concrete mechanisms, what we can do also within the framework of reassurance force. But then countries come together. Of course, we put together how we see it, what we can do, what would be the right choices. So at the very end, it is also what Europe must step up with our allies as well. This is the time to do it, and I think this is a mechanism which can be certainly employed in this regard.
Minister, at the first meeting of the Coalition of the Willing here at NATO headquarters, does it mean that NATO is moving closer to the Coalition of the Willing? Would the Coalition of the Willing also be able to use, for example, command and control systems of NATO or intelligence structures of NATO?
Well, there are different formats, and there is a format, of course, Coalition of the Willing. There is a format of Rammstein, which will take place tomorrow. So there are ways, formats, what can be employed in this regard. It is not a NATO mission in any way. So yes, it takes place in a NATO building, but at the very end, this is a coalition of 30 countries with different regional perspectives as well here. Excuse me once more.
According to some reports, media reports, the U.S. is willing, reluctant to providing any support for this force. So is it possible to put this together without any U.S. support?
Well, let's face it. Let's not underestimate what Europe and European partners have. We are strong economically. We are developing, of course, our capabilities in military terms and defense terms. I think everyone understands also that it goes hand in hand. More military financial investment in our defense also means that we can also organize things, coordinate things, and also support Ukraine more efficiently. So these are by the framework. Within the EU white paper, of course, it is about what Europe can do itself, but it is about also porcupine strategy supporting Ukraine. So what do I mean by this? We can do a lot ourselves. We can do a lot as European nations. We have a lot of our own capabilities. At the same time, yes, still there are the details must be carved out how we cooperate with our partners. We believe strongly in transatlantic linkage. We believe that, again, those formats like Rammstein must be sustained, where US is also part of, but there are also other formats where US might not be part of. And I guess fairly enough that in our neighborhood, in European neighborhood, we Europeans should be able also to deal efficiently with aggressor countries, especially taking into account our capacities, our capabilities, our will also to, of course, invest in those challenging times what we are all facing.
Will the reassurance force?
How many troops on the ground would be a credible reassurance force, and
Well, there are of course still discussions also on specifics. As I said, I will not go perhaps into the details. Yes, there are countries which are now also discussing, considering nationally what they can contribute. Of course, contributions are extremely important. We must remember that Europe have all around 2 million soldiers, so 2 million under uniform. So we can actually do a lot. Another question is how efficient we are, how able we are to put together mobile forces. But again, this is a wider context. What is a peace agreement or ceasefire framework? So there are a number of pieces of puzzle which we should put together. There is certainly the will. That's why the reassurance force is being discussed, what specifically we can do. And Latvia, yes, we consider potentially also, of course, contributing. But once more, it is connected, it's related specifically to the peace agreement or ceasefire parameters. It is also, of course, focused on what we do in terms of training. I mean, we've been, I would say, training leader of Ukrainian soldiers, so we, of course, certainly would see potential also some role in this regard. And last but not least, for Latvia, for some other countries which are on the eastern flank, we have to ensure also a regional eastern flank protection and defense against aggressor countries. So that's why, of course, also the providing, contributing soldiers or representatives or contribution to the reassurance force in Ukraine, we should not weaken our own defenses, being on a border with aggressor country. And we take it very seriously. We contribute strongly. In coming years, it will be 5% from our GDP will go for defense expenditure.
Would it be an option that the reassurance force will end up just being a monitoring force in Ukraine?
Well, first of all, once more, we are all interested in ensuring the stable peace, just peace, and sustainable peace. So that's why, of course, we have to provide everything what we can provide, also what Ukraine needs. So this is for task for the countries, also task for the ministers, together with the military planning. So to go hand in hand, how we can do it as more efficient. So there's certainly mission from mission differs, so there are different missions. So certainly this reassurance force, I think already name expresses quite a lot. So it of course reassures first of all Ukrainian side. We realize who is aggressor country and who must be supported as well.
Are you confident during the talks that many states, other states will send troops, and do you think it will be enough?
Well, of course, we must do everything what is efficient, what we can also agree upon. Yes, if it's 30 countries, we must remember that every country, of course, has its own capabilities, also understanding, but same time there is a common understanding that we have to be unified, that's why this is a coalition of the willing, and I once more can underline, it's not just coalition of the willing, it's also a coalition of the able, or it is those countries which provided support and which look for a new upgrade, new enhancement of that support, what we can provide. Of course, let's be realistic, most likely there are some limits as well, as I said about the quite a number of soldiers at disposal of European nations, but at the same time it must be also tailored according to all the needs under concrete circumstances, also with clear sort of setting and format in mind what ceasefire means, what potential peace agreement means. Well, that certainly, first of all, must be addressed to the Turkish authorities. So I would not speak on behalf of Turkish authority in this regard. So I can speak on, I can speak on. Well, of course, it is discussable. The coalition of the willing consists of many countries. And of course, if Turkey would express also its willingness, I think it certainly should be discussed. NATO is part of NATO. Turkey is our ally. Turkey is our NATO partner.
How sustainable do you think?
Colleagues, last one, yes?
How much longer before you actually have a concrete plan that you can put forward and say, this is what this coalition is willing to contribute?
Well, again, the primary goal is to ensure the just and sustainable peace. So that's why there are a number of those dimensions what we have to deal with. So the war has been lasting already for 3 years. So we realize that this is existential threat, of course, to Ukrainian nation, but to all of us. So that's why, of course, on the one hand, we must be as fast as possible. There is a sense of urgency, but at the same time, we have to put all the pieces of puzzle efficiently together. So once more, there is a strategic dimension, there is operational dimension, there is, of course, also Ukrainian side and willingness and identification of those needs, what should be also efficiently implemented together. So there are a number of those elements which should be sort of put together efficiently in a good synergy.
When do you
Thank
think you will be able to announce a plan? I mean, is it a question of days, weeks, no?
Well, I think let's see. We will see it also today. So there will be discussion exactly on the timeline. So we've been discussing it already for some time. I think we already see some move forward quite considerably. So there already been different formats. This is the first meeting of the ministers of the Coalition of the Willing, but certainly this has been on the agenda already for some time. So now it's more about already practical implementation. So at the same time, of course, keeping also the wider strategic picture in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that I will stop here. So thank you so much. And of course, good luck with, I think, very important day. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Just shortly from the Finnish perspective, this is an important meeting, first meeting with defense ministers in a coalition of willing. We are seeing that Russia doesn't have enough desire for peace, so it's highly important that we are strengthening the Ukraine's position in military, in industrial field, and also at the financial field, and also increase the pressure for Russia to come to the negotiation table. And of course, we are today having also the briefings from the military side that what kind of could be these security arrangements after the peace or ceasefire or some kind of peace treaty.
What concrete details do you have about the coalition of the willing, this reassurance force? How many troops would you need?
Well, we are hearing today more detailed briefings about that. What is the amount of troops or capabilities, what is needed? But the main focus must be that Ukraine's armed forces are the top one priority now to strengthen up. That's their key security guarantee, that we have to even more strengthen their army and defense industry after the ceasefire. And the second pillar is that this Western forces or Western operation will support the Ukraine's army forces.
How many troops do you think would be necessary to provide reassurance for Ukraine from Western nations, including your own? How many are you prepared to contribute to this?
Well, there's a lot of public discussion now about the amount of troops, but we are now hearing the military assessment today. And of course, the Ukrainians are the key players, of course, here now, that what is their assessment. From the Finnish perspective, we think that the United States is a crucial player still in the guaranteeing the lasting security, and that's why we are emphasizing that the United States must be involved in somehow. Thank you. I have to go.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Very nice to be here back at the NATO HQ. As you know, we're having a Coalition of the Willing meeting this afternoon, and then we have the Ukraine Defense Contact Group meeting tomorrow. Sweden, of course, announced now its second package to Ukraine just very recently. This is our biggest package, so in the last 30 days we've been providing the Ukrainian with commitments for over 3 billion euros. Our focus is now very clear. It's on supporting the Ukrainians as much as possible. We're front-loading our support to Ukraine as well to put them in such a good position as possible in order to, if they want to negotiate.
It's the first meeting of the Coalition of the Willing here at NATO HQ. Does it mean that NATO is moving closer to the Coalition of the Willing? Would it be an option that also NATO control structures or intelligence structures will actually be used for missions of the Coalition of the Willing?
I expect that's one of the things that's going to be deliberation over right now. It's a little bit at the early stages. This is the first time that the defense ministers meeting. Of course, the heads of state and governments and our CHODs has been meeting as well. But this is an important aspect also to the defense ministers meetings as well. And I hope to have more answers after the the meeting. I think that's a bit early to tell as well. From the Swedish position, we said it's important with some form of US engagement. I think it's important to make an assessment how this will affect NATO's other DDA activities, defense and deterrence activities, and of course there had to be some sort of rules of engagement. But once again, it's a bit early to tell, and our focus predominantly right now is on supporting the Ukrainians as much and providing the Ukrainians with the new support packages. That's our key focus right now.
First French proposal.
Sorry, sir.
Are you confident that enough states will participate in the peacekeeping forces?
Well, I think there's strength into numbers, and that's good. The more that do contribute, as I say, I don't exclude the possibility that Sweden is going to participate. But there's a number of questions that we need to get clarified, and I think there's several things that has to be sorted out before we can make any kind of commitment.
Sir, what do you think would be a credible reassurance force in terms of numbers? Are you talking about tens of thousands? I mean, we know the Ukrainians would like hundreds of thousands, but do you think 20, 30 would be enough? And do you think there'd be enough countries contributing to that?
I think there's helpful if there's a clarity of what that mission would entail and what it would do if we were peacekeeping, deterrence, or reassurance. I think that depending on the volume will based on what objectives, and I think that the rules of engagement would be another thing that would be very important to get clarified.
But in
all right, thank you.
Sweden is willing to contribute, correct?
We don't exclude the possibility that Sweden contributing. That's correct.
parts this morning. Good afternoon. It's good to be here. This is the first time we have the Coalition of the Willing in the format of defense ministers. I think it's important that we have the different formats to really show the support and what more can we do. I mean, on the European Union side, we are the biggest provider of training. We have the training mission where we have already trained over 73,000 Ukrainian soldiers. We also have the civilian mission. The mission could also do more. And then we are also the biggest supporter of Ukrainian defense industry. Of course, as whole, Europe is the biggest provider also of military aid. And we are constantly pushing what more can we do, because we see the situation is such that Ukraine it has been now 4 weeks ago when they were very clear that they agreed to the unconditional ceasefire, and Russia still hasn't agreed to the ceasefire. So it's clear that Ukraine wants peace, but Russia so far doesn't. So we need to do more on our side.
It's the first meeting here at NATO HQ of the Coalition of the Willing. Does it mean that the NATO structures will also move closer to the Coalition of the Willing, and that the reassurance force could potentially use NATO control systems, NATO intelligence systems as well?
Well, NATO has been involved in the discussions that we have in the Coalition of the Willing, and it is a spot where we have these discussions. So I think everybody's thinking in terms of what more can we do in terms of the things that Ukraine really needs. That also is intelligence, that also is access to satellites, that also is different capabilities.
Could the European Union contribute to a reassurance force or to some other elements that would be useful in terms of this planning? Could the training mission, for example, take place partly inside Ukraine?
This is one of the topics that we are going to discuss today. I mean, bringing forward what more can the EU missions do? I mean, should we expand the mandate? Should we include different things? Should we also discuss where this training is conducted? So far, we have managed to keep the mandate and really update the mission with the Ukrainian needs. So they are constantly saying, this works, this doesn't work, let's change this. So we are able to do that, and of course also discuss. But when it comes to any reassurance force, then also we need to know what is it really about. Is it deterrence? Is it the monitoring? Is it the peacekeeping? Also, what is our goal? And that is very much related to whether we have peace or not. And so far we don't have peace, what to keep.
A number of defense ministers have said that the US needs to support any long-term security, given that we're not even going to see the US Defense Secretary turn up to the Ukraine contact group tomorrow, which they once chaired. Are you optimistic that the US will provide some kind of backstop if there was a ceasefire, or have you essentially written them off?
Well, we are constantly working with this. It is also in the interest of the United States that there is stability and peace in Europe, because it is what is happening in Ukraine and how this war ends also has an impact on other security theaters like Asia Pacific, for example. So it's also in the interest of the United States.
The French proposal of the reassurance force mentions a number of troops between 10,000 and 25,000 soldiers. How many countries would need to provide to actually achieve that number?
Well, of course, it's up to the member states to provide concrete numbers, and we have the discussions, and you know these discussions as well. Some member states are willing to participate, some are not, and these discussions are still ongoing. But I'm coming back to the point where, the question is, first, if there is peace, then what kind of troops or what kind of reassurance we really need.
So potentially it could also be just a monitoring mission.
Potentially it could be. The discussion is whether it's monitoring mission, it's a deterrence mission, it's a peacekeeping mission, it's a strengthening mission or defense mission. There are different options. So and of course different countries have different sensitivities also regarding this.
But will it be possible at all to put a mission like
We are not in that position yet. I mean, of course, we have to map what we all can do. So this is the position where we are, and of course, like I said, trying to also keep the United States on board. Okay, thank you.
Hi.
So what are you expecting today on the discussions on the reassurance force? Macron was mentioning troops between 10,000 and 25,000 soldiers. Is this something that is discussed today? How many countries will provide? Will the Netherlands be able to contribute?
No, I think it's important after the military planning that has taken place over the last weeks that we have a political discussion today. That's also indeed about what is the potential mission, what is going to be the goal, what is the mandate, what would we do on the different scenarios, for example, if there would be any escalation regarding Russia, also how is it related to a potential monitoring mission. I think it's important to discuss those very key and fundamental questions. And of course, for some countries, it's clear what they are willing to do. For the Netherlands, we need to go through a political approval process first. So for us, it's important that there is a clear picture on what such a mission would entail. And then we can also have our national decision-making process first within the government and then also with our parliament.
Do you think Europe is strong enough?
Sorry.
Sorry, just very quickly, how successful do you think a reassurance force would be though without that backstop support from the US?
It really depends. So of course, to have the US on board, also when it comes to some enablement, I think it is important. And of course, it is good if the United States is very explicit about its support and backstop. But it really depends on the mission, to what extent the US involvement is needed. So we need to discuss that in more detail. Sorry, you're first.
What do you think? How many troops would be needed to provide a good peacekeeping mission?
It really depends on the mission. So you use the word peacekeeping mission. It's a very different definition than a assurance mission. So it really depends on the goal of the mission, and also it really depends on the goal of the mission how much resource you need.
Do you see we can do it without the US backstop? Are we credible enough without them?
I think it's very important to have the United States on board. But then it also needs to be clear what type of mission and what we ask from the United States, and that's what we will discuss also today.
What is the signal that the coalition of the willing is meeting at NATO HQ today? Not in Paris or London.
I think it is important also to show, of course, that there, regardless of what type of mission it's going to be, that there is a connection to NATO, because we need to work on security guarantees for Ukraine, and at the same time make sure that we keep our collective defense and deterrence through NATO, and that it's as strong as ever. So, of course, there's always a connection.
How many more meetings do you need, sir?
Thank you last time for putting his mic on. Oh, yeah. If you could kindly do the same if you guess, that would be. Don't put this on.
So it hasn't come.
Put the earpiece on once the cameras have departed.
Yes.
Otherwise it's all through the microphones.
Okay, no,
Push
press
that button
that.
to speak.
Will do. Thank you.
Can you put this on when the cameras go? Okay. Thank you so much. So we've got
en 3 ans est habitué à être au bout d'avance.
Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, and can I start by saying, alongside my good friend, Minister Sébastien Lecornu, a huge thank you to you all for being here, for attending what is the first Defence Ministers meeting of the Coalition of the Willing for Ukraine. And I want to thank the 200 military planners from 30 countries in Europe and beyond who've been hard at work in recent weeks. Together, we're stepping up as one, ready to secure Ukraine's future following any peace deal. We advance the momentum of that planning here today, planning to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position to protect its sovereignty and to deter any further Russian aggression. And while today's discussions will be private, our planning is real and substantial, our plans are well developed, and we have clear objectives for Ukraine. First, to secure safe skies. Second, to secure safe seas. Third, to support a peace on the land. And fourth, to support the Ukrainian armed forces to become their own strongest possible deterrent. Our reassurance force for Ukraine would be a committed and credible security arrangement to ensure that any negotiated peace does bring what President Trump has pledged, a lasting peace for Ukraine. And we will hear in a moment from our UK and French Chiefs of Defence, Admiral Tony Ranakin and General Thierry Boucard, who together have led this work. They will give us an update on the military planning. And we will focus on how operational planning of the coalition could work and how we make sure that we're fully prepared for the moment a peace agreement is reached. But we cannot jeopardize the peace by forgetting about the war, and the daily reality for millions of Ukrainians continues. Drone attacks, missile strikes, brutal fighting on the front line. So we must put more pressure on President Putin to end his war, and we must step up our support for Ukraine, both in the fight and in the push for peace. That's why I'm grateful that so many of you who are here today will also be here tomorrow for the meeting of the Ukraine Defence Contact Group, when we will pledge more military support to bolster Ukraine on the battlefield. There are 30 countries here today, 30 countries bound by a simple belief that peace is possible and we must be ready for when that peace comes. That's why the work of this coalition is so vital. We're stepping up We're serious. We're sending a signal to President Putin and to Minister Umarov and the Ukrainian people. We stand with you in the fight, and we will stand with you in the peace. Thank you. Now, if I may ask the media to leave, we will then turn to Minister Lecornu and get on with the meeting.